Jake Paul continues to shock the world with each of his fights against Askren, Woodley, and Silva. He's one of the most talked about boxers, even though he hasn't faced any professional fighters yet. But now, the ultimate test for Jake Paul arrives as he faces Tommy Fury in the ring. The anticipation for this fight is at an all-time high, and it's finally time to find out what will happen in the fight and who will come out victorious. Despite what Jake Paul and others may claim, that this will be his first fight against a real boxer, the reality is that assessing Tommy Fury's record is not so straightforward. He has had 8 professional fights, all of which ended in victory, but when you take a closer look at the records of his opponents, it becomes clear that most of them had never won a fight. Of course, many young fighters are matched against weaker opponents during their first 10 to 20 fights to gain experience and create their highlights, but this makes it difficult to gauge Tommy's true level. Because when he faces these weaker opponents, he beats them like punching bags. But still, from his very first fights, Tommy Fury showcased his style as a pressing counterattacker, which may not sound typical, but it's an accurate description of his fighting style. One of the best fighters with this style is the young Conor McGregor. He consistently pressured his opponents, but rarely landed the first punch. His strength lay in timing and waiting. With his pressure, he forced opponents to act, and any action was immediately countered. This style brought him the victories that propelled his career, but when he stopped fighting in this way, the success came to an end. Tommy is constantly moving towards his opponents, deceiving them and trying to force them to make a mistake. As soon as they do, he immediately punishes them. He uses the jab primarily to annoy his opponent, unlike his brother Tyson, who from a young age used a strong jab to damage his rivals. Tommy's jab is more of a binding punch to develop an advantage. Tommy's goal is always to conceal his right punch behind a jab or a decoy, most often an uppercut or a straight one, and he executes this technique exceptionally well. He rarely engages in an exchange without a strategy and always reads his opponent first. In his fight with Anthony Taylor, he used an uppercut almost every second, as Anthony was consistently attempting to land an overhand and lowering his head, which Tommy punished. Fury even took unnecessary risks by recklessly throwing himself with a right uppercut, which is very dangerous. However, he should be cautious and not forget about Darren Till's interesting experience with a right uppercut. For example, in this scenario, we see how Fury deceives his opponent with a straight punch and then throws a fake jab to the side. The opponent, believing it to be a regular jab, opens up for a hard body shot. The next time the opponent tries to counter this combination, but Fury changes his attack and sends him to a knockdown. Fury constantly plays with his jab, manipulating his opponent's movements, reading their reaction, and identifying opportunities to attack. Even some of the best fighters he's faced, such as Daniel Botsanovsky, have tried to counter Fury's jab with a right hook, but were instantly punished. Fury thinks through all his actions in advance, but the only thing that broke Conor McGregor's style was hard pressure, because this style may not work if the opponent has more stamina and puts too much pressure. The space that Tommy creates is crucial for him, allowing him to counterattack while also having multiple escape routes to get out of a dangerous distance. But if the opponent pressures him, he only has the ropes behind him, which is dangerous for Tommy. In their fight, Gennady Krajewski tried to employ the strategy and even partially succeeded. Tommy missed a lot of punches, and considering that his opponent had 11 defeats and 0 wins, it was surprising that Fury missed so many attacks, and even had to give the initiative to his opponent for a round so that he wouldn't tire out. In the end, Fury punished him with his signature right uppercut. The right uppercut is the perfect counterattack for Tommy. It demonstrates that his counterattacks are something every opponent should be afraid of. Tommy can struggle under heavy pressure, as shown in his fights with Bachinski and Krajewski. However, the main essence of Fury's style is freedom of movement and space. If this is taken away, he will not be effective. To do this, an opponent needs to use dirty boxing, clinch, and drive him into a corner. But few people will be able to do this effectively, as it requires more stamina and better footwork than Tommy. But if a weaker boxer could use this game plan for at least a round, could Jake Paul? Jake Paul's style is vastly different from the more traditional and familiar boxing style of Tommy. He is unorthodox and twitchy, but still highly effective. His style is more akin to that of an MMA fighter, and it appears he spends a lot of time training in mixed martial arts. This freestyle can be felt in his fighting and is not as simple as it may appear. Jake constantly bends down, hits from unusual angles, uses dirty boxing techniques, and is constantly in the clinch. He is able to get even MMA fighters who are used to clinching. Anderson Silva was tired of Jake's clinch, and even a greater wrestler like Woodley couldn't understand how he loses in the clinch to this blogger. Fighting against fighters who employ unique and unorthodox styles, like Tony Ferguson, can be challenging. Although Jake may not be as unpredictable as Tony, he is still an inconvenient opponent for rivals. He never rushes, waits, and somehow magically brings his right straight to every opponent, but near the end of the fight. The secret is that Jake spends the whole fight preparing the moment for a right straight or hook. In his fight with Woodley, Jake constantly fed the opponent with his left hand. All the emphasis was on the front hand, and he hit the body more often than the head with the right hand, which was strange. But at the crucial moment, Paul executed it perfectly. He turned his hand to make it look like a cheap deception. It seemed to say, "Woodley, well, I definitely want to deceive you right now, and I don't want to beat you with this hand." Woodley believed it and went to bed. Askren, who also went down in a similar fashion, having missed a right straight over the block. However, Silva's knockdown was more interesting as Paul sent his opponent to the canvas on the way out of the clinch, showing his awareness at close range. One of Jake's disadvantages is that he struggles with opponents who use quick combinations. He often throws a check hook in confusing situations, which has led to almost getting knocked out in his first fight with Woodley. This is something that Fury will likely take advantage of, so Jake should be careful with his check hook. Both fighters have unique skills. Tommy Fury is able to deceive Jake and make him perform foolish actions. He is also faster and more technical than Jake. However, Jake possesses a lot of power and an impressive clinch, which will be a problem for Fury. It's hard to predict who will win, as Jake has fought more experienced fighters, including some from MMA, while Fury has only fought beginners. Tommy Fury's style is clear and familiar, but Jake Paul's style is an unsolved mystery. I believe that this will be the reason for Jake's victory, as he will constantly press, engage in the clinch, and tire Tommy while trying to deliver his right hook on the way out of the clinch. Additionally, Paul has always shown superior endurance in his fights and may do so again in this match. I think that there will be no knockout in this fight, and I am inclined to predict Jake Paul's victory by the referee's decision. Remember to like the video if you want more content like this.